It was hard to believe what I was seeing that night. One moment, Lucky, the man everyone admired for his wealth and charm, was just like us, struggling and looking for a way to make it. Then, the next morning, he was a millionaire. No, scratch that. He was richer than anyone in the whole village. Let me start from the beginning. Lucky was 30 years old, tall, with dark skin that glistened in the sun, and always dressed in fine Igbo attire, the kind that made heads turn. Everyone knew him. He was handsome, sharp, and carried himself like someone who had everything figured out. But the truth? He wasn't rich. He lived in a small, ordinary house, worked hard, and had a family to care for, just like the rest of us. But one night, something changed. It was late, and I was walking home after a long day in the fields when I saw Lucky sitting by the side of the road, alone, staring into the distance. His face looked troubled, like he had a million things on his mind. "Is everything okay, Lucky?" I asked as I slowed down. He looked up, his eyes tired. "I've been thinking about how hard it is to get ahead. No matter how much I work, it's never enough. The money seems to slip through my fingers." He sighed deeply, running his fingers through his hair. "I wish there was a way to get it all, just like that." I didn't know what to say. We had all been struggling, dreaming of a way out, but none of us expected a miracle. Then, just as I was about to leave, Lucky stood up suddenly, his face lighting up as if he had seen something. "I've heard about a powerful man who can make anyone rich overnight," he said, his voice full of excitement. "They say he lives in the forest, far away from the village. If I can find him, maybe he can help me." I looked at him, confused. "Who is this man? And how do you know all this?" Lucky smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was more like someone who had made up their mind to do something dangerous. I heard the elders whisper about him. "He's a wizard," they say. "He grants wishes, but there's always a price to pay." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Lucky's words. The next day, he left the village early, determined to find the wizard. I didn't see him for 2 days. When he finally returned, everything had changed. Lucky's house was no longer the small, humble place it once was. His yard was filled with servants, shiny cars, and piles of money. People were whispering that he had become a millionaire overnight. They said he had found the wizard. I couldn't believe it. How could someone change so quickly? Lucky looked different too. His clothes were now the finest, and his smile had a new kind of power behind it. But as I watched him, I began to see something else. Lucky was no longer the cheerful, easygoing man I had known. There was a coldness in his eyes now, a kind of emptiness. He rarely spoke to anyone, except to give orders or boast about his new wealth. One evening, I decided to ask him how it all happened. We were sitting together, and I couldn't hold back my curiosity. "So, Lucky, how did you do it? How did you become so rich?" He leaned back, staring at the stars. "I met the wizard. He gave me everything I asked for. All I had to do was give him my trust and believe in him." I was silent for a moment. "And the price?" "You said there was always a price." Lucky's smile faded. "The price was my happiness, my peace. I'm rich, but I'm not free. I traded my soul for wealth. I didn't understand then, but I do now." Lucky had everything, but in the end, he lost what really mattered. That night, I learned that becoming a millionaire overnight wasn't a blessing. Sometimes, you can have all the money in the world, but it won't be enough if you lose yourself in the process. I've seen Lucky, still wealthy but cold and distant, and I've made a vow to never chase riches at the cost of my peace. You can't buy happiness, no matter how rich you become.